Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Welcome to the second episode of the Big Ten Whip Around Show. We have a lot more action this week, particularly in the Big Ten West. A lot more movement, a lot more evidence for us to go by when it comes to the power rankings and kind of where we see each of the Big Ten teams heading into week 3. Notable games, we had Iowa versus Iowa State, the classic Cyhawk game. We had Wisconsin versus Washington State, Illinois versus Kansas. Like I said, a lot of Big Ten West games that were fairly defining. Purdue versus Virginia Tech. So we will dive into all of it immediately. By the way, if you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button. I want to get to 2,000 subs by the time the season ends. We are well on our way, and I just want to thank all of you who have hopped on this YouTube channel and supported the content, supported the channel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. If you guys want to donate to the channel, you guys absolutely can. Support your boy's coffee habit. Click the PayPal or Cash App link, or you guys can just donate to the channel by hitting the tip button on this video. Well, and without further ado, let's get into this. All right, guys, like I said, a lot of good stuff this week. Lots more to go over. Last week was kind of just, regular status quo. There were a few, like 1 or 2 games that were interesting, but week 1 wasn't filled with a ton of fireworks. We'll start here. Indiana beats in-state Indiana State pretty handily. Indiana State, I believe, is a FCS team. So, got to take this win with a grain of salt. However, Tavon Jackson, who is from the state of Indiana, who actually committed to Tennessee in a very, very, very big recruiting battle, he ends up going back to the Hoosiers, and he had a decent game. 18 of 21, 236 yards, 11.2 yards average per completion, 72.3 QBR. Not bad. Not bad at all. Indiana had a really good game on the ground, 214 yards of rushing. Omar Cooper Jr. had a really solid game, 101 yards receiving. And Indiana State picked up the victory. Like I said, not a ton to really say here. Indiana played an in-state FCS school, but I think people need to be paying attention to Indiana, okay? I'm not sold on them completely, and I'm not willing to make sweeping claims that Indiana is going to be a dark horse, but I think they performed well, or about as well as you could have hoped, against Ohio State week 1. But again, it's week 1. You got to take it with a grain of salt. Ohio State, you could make the argument that Ohio State was not completely up to speed. Week 1 games tend to not be as completely representative of a team as other games. So, but I do think Indiana is worth keeping an eye on, at the very least. Moving on here. Illinois loses on the road to the Kansas Jayhawks. Number one, I don't want to go as far to say that this was a bad loss for Illinois, but I do think it's a very reflective loss for where Illinois is currently at. They don't have as good of a defense as they had last year. the score indicates a much closer game than what it really was. Kansas was completely in the driver's seat this entire game. They were up by as many as 3 touchdowns in the second and third quarter. I think they were up by as many as 24 points in the third quarter. Illinois just could not contain the pass, and they struggled to contain Kansas quarterback on the ground, passing. It didn't matter. They struggled. So Illinois, like I said, I think that this is a reflective game of where they are currently at. We'll see how good Kansas really is as the season goes on. They are 2-0. I don't want to say that I think Kansas is like a 9 or 10 win caliber team. They might be a 7 or 8 win caliber team at this point. They could be. They could be. They certainly have a quarterback that can make plays. So Illinois definitely has issues defensively in the passing game. Let's look at the box score here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I thought Luke Altmaier made a few decent plays. He did still throw 2 INTs. Not good. Illinois gave up a 100-yard rusher in Devin Neal, who ran for 120 yards, 1 tub. Let's look at the team stats here. They allowed Kansas to get 27 first downs, and they gave up 539 yards of total offense. They just could not contain Kansas at all. I mean, the quarterback just kept Illinois on their heels defensively all game long. Illinois, no matter how hard they tried, could not get anything going defensively, could not be offensive when it came to the defense. They could not attack Kansas. They were just on their heels too much, guys. They just were. So Illinois definitely has some work to do. Like I said, I thought I saw some decent things from the quarterback. You know, he had 70 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Overall, they need a lot of help in the run game. Outside of that, they still had 139 yards rushing, which isn't bad, but they gave up 262 yards rushing and 277 yards passing. I mean, that's just a really balanced game from Kansas offensively. Really, really balanced game. All right, guys, moving on here. Michigan beat UNLV. You know, what is there to say? You know, Michigan is the number 2 team in the country. They should have won this game, and they did. Same with Ohio State beating Youngstown State. J.J. McCarthy, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. Corum with 88 yards rushing on 15 carries, 3 tubs. Really, really good game. Ohio State versus Youngstown State, 258 yards for McCord, 3 TDs. It's very interesting. I thought Ohio State was going to be going with the former 4-star from Utah, Devin Brown. But it looks like they're going with McCord. He had a really good game, 90 QBR, 12.9 yards per completion, 258 yards. They had 123 yards on the ground. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud, 160 yards receiving, 2 tubs. Really, really solid game. We'll also look at some team stats as well. Penn State smashed Delaware. Wisconsin loses to Washington State. Again, it's this game in my analysis is it's virtually the same as Illinois versus Kansas. Okay. Number one, we'll see how good Washington State ends up being this season. I could see them being a 7-8 win team. Could they be a 9-10 win team? We'll see. We'll see. Wisconsin could not stop Washington State all game long. And much like the Illinois game, this game was actually closer than the Illinois-Kansas game. It was, but it still wasn't that close. Wisconsin took the lead, I think, as deep as the third quarter. But Washington State prevailed. I don't think Wisconsin, and now who knows, now that Luke Fickell is the head coach, I don't think that this will work in the Big Ten West when you have a quarterback throwing the ball 40 times, especially with only a 7-yard completion percentage. He had 1 touchdown, 0 INTs. That's not bad. Wisconsin's defense was pretty good against the run, but they could not get anything going on the ground. It's very interesting to see what's going on with Braylon Allen in this new Luke Fickell era, because I remember there were stories about Braylon Allen potentially leaving Wisconsin. Wisconsin definitely went with Malusi over Allen. So that is definitely interesting to see. Skylar Bell, the transfer from UCLA, got some action. DK had a decent game. I guess that would be the one upside to this game for Wisconsin, is they were able to get their passing game and their receivers involved. I would do anything. No, not anything, but I would love to see Iowa have this stat line from in the passing game just once this season from Wisconsin. Spread the ball around pretty well. Tight end, or Hayden Rucci, I don't know if that's a tight end or offensive tackle. I think that's an offensive tackle. But Wisconsin, they got to clean it up. They had 3 fumbles. That's just not a recipe for success. You cannot win. It's very tough to win games against Power 5 teams when you are turning the ball over 3 times. Very, very difficult. And you're not forcing a ton. I don't think they forced any. They had 0 turnovers. Washington State. Is it Group of 5 or Power 5? Group of 5, I think, is the smaller schools. Power 5 is the big schools. So Wisconsin loses to Washington State. Again, Wisconsin on paper should have won this game. How good is Washington State? We'll see. But just examining this game, Wisconsin has a lot of issues that they need to shore up. And really the biggest concern that I had about them is 2 things. One, just because Luke Fickell won at Cincinnati, the Big Ten is a totally different beast. And we've seen numerous head coaches come into the Big Ten from Group of 5 schools where everybody thinks it's a guarantee that they're going to win a ton of football games, but it's a different animal. The Big Ten is a different animal. And the second thing is, Wisconsin has for years, and especially the current roster, has been a defensive-minded, Iowa-esque, run-the-ball-first team. Braylon Allen, getting the rock, you pound it. And they threw the ball 40 times against Washington State. So what I'm getting at is, what is their identity? Who is the new Wisconsin? Are they a pass-first team? Are they not as concerned about the defensive side of the ball as they maybe used to be. Regardless, I don't think Wisconsin fans can be happy about their Badgers giving up 31 points to a Washington State football club, regardless of how good or not good the Washington State offense is. And it is concerning that Braylon Allen only got 7 touches. And Wisconsin, who prides itself on offensive line play, or at least used to, could not run the ball. Next game, Nebraska versus Colorado. Listen, folks, you guys know, especially Iowa fans who have been watching my channel a long time, I am not I think that this is more of my generation thing. Since I've been alive, Nebraska has really been an average football program. So I don't get baited into this kind of bias where I look on what the program used to be, and anytime they have a new coach, I freak out and think that they're going to be an amazing program and they're just going to win football games just because. Okay, they have had losing years back to back seasons. They got a lot of issues they need to fix. Now, I've long said that it's not due to a lack of talent. Nebraska has continuously recruited with the best of them. I mean, you'd be surprised at the number of top 30 recruiting classes that Nebraska has had in the past 5 years and compare it to their actual wins and losses on the football field. I mean, talk about a school that gets recruits solely based off of the legacy and prestige of the program and what it used to be and the historicity of the program. Just going back to the previous game here, just wanted to do the total yards. 368. Wisconsin still had 368 yards total offense. That's not bad. Okay, that is somewhat of a positive, but only being able to score 20 points when you have almost 400 yards of total offense is a problem. And giving up 332 is not the worst, but I think they would like to keep that down. So going back to Nebraska and Colorado, my dad graduated from Colorado, so I'm not as big of a fan of Colorado as I am for the Iowa Hawkeyes, but when they play, I root for them. And as far as my analysis goes, I think a lot of people are really going through the Deion Sanders effect. Okay. Me, I'm pumping the brakes because number one, the win over TCU and kind of the excitement around it is primarily based off of TCU's national championship appearance from last year. That doesn't mean they're the same team this year. Secondly, beating Nebraska is not like this amazing thing. Many, many other teams have done it over the past 5 years. So, we'll see. Okay. I'm not saying that they may, again, they could have it in them. I'm sure they have a lot of talent on the roster, but just looking at the two teams that they have beaten, I'm not as sold as some other individuals are in the media and how willing they are to just immediately say that Colorado is this elite football program all of a sudden, yada, yada, yada. Now, Colorado, I don't want to talk about them too much because they're in the Pac-12. As for Nebraska, Nebraska's got issues, guys. Okay. Welcome to big, Power 5 football, Matt Rhule. And again, I think it's very similar to Wisconsin. Are they an offensive first team? Are they a defensive first team? What is the identity? See, a team like Iowa knows what their identity is. At the very least, they know exactly who they are. Nebraska, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. And I'm not so sure they are even sold on Jeff Sims as their quarterback. How many times have we seen quarterbacks like Jeff Sims at Nebraska? And on one hand, it definitely gives some advantages. On the other, it can be tough. It can be tough, especially in the group of five, where defenses are more physical and better, better coached, more athletic. You got to be able to make passes. And I'm not sure Jeff Sims is that guy, just like we've seen with Adrian Martinez and other previous Nebraska quarterbacks over the past 5 years. So they need to figure out who their quarterback is. And I don't think they even know who it is. Okay. We saw Heinrich Haarberg get in there. Jeff Sims has had back-to-back mediocre, average games of very unimpressive stat lines. The one bright spot would be Gabe Ervin. Gabe Ervin actually had a good game. And Jeff Sims still did have a lot of good action on the ground. If I was Nebraska, I would. It seems to me what Nebraska is trying to do is they are trying to fit Jeff Sims into their scheme rather than fit their scheme to Jeff Sims. And as a former Division I athlete myself, I've always been a bigger proponent, especially in football, of having your scheme fit the top player that you have, especially in football, the quarterback, rather than have the quarterback fit your scheme. And I think that that's the case with Nebraska. They would be better off fitting their scheme to Jeff Sims and the plays he can make and his benefits on the ground and running the football, and kind of developing this kind of quick, easy passing, but also a huge emphasis on his playmaking, running ability type offense. I think they would be much better off doing that. So, but not a ton of bright spots, guys. They gave up a ton of yards. They almost gave up 40 points to Colorado. I mean, just almost 400 yards of total offense. Or no. They did give up 400 yards of total offense. 454. 340 yards of total offense is not bad for Nebraska. But again, what is their identity? If they're a pass first team, maybe 341 is not what they want. I mean, it's okay, but you also have to have a clean turnover sheet. So they had 6 penalties, 4 turnovers. You're just not going to win a lot of games doing that. 3 fumbles lost, 1 INT. You're just not going to win a lot of football games playing like that, especially not in the Big Ten West. All right, guys, moving on here. Purdue had a nice, solid victory against Virginia Tech. I would say that that was definitely one of the better victories in week 2. I would say that Iowa's victory over Iowa State. Those would probably be the top 2 victories in the Big Ten this week. Michigan State beat Richmond. I'm going to start kind of flying through this a little bit. We'll just go ahead and look at the team stats. But Purdue's defense played well, and they still did generate 427 yards total offense. Now, I think they would like to score more than 24 points if you're going to nearly have 500 yards of total offense. But not bad. So definitely some positives for Purdue. That was definitely a solid win for Virginia Tech. Now, Purdue, it's kind of hard to get a grasp on them considering their loss to Fresno State week 1. So, you know, welcome to college football, folks. Welcome to college football. I did already do my post-game show for the Iowa State game. This is what I'll say, guys. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place when it comes to Iowa football, because on one hand, all I care about is them winning, truly, okay? But on the other, you do wish that it could just be a little bit more, and as you'll see, Iowa fans, with the team stats, I made a Facebook post a little bit earlier today. Cade McNamara is currently tied 100th in passing yards in the country. He is number 1. He's tied for 100th. Okay. And however, I thought that there were some, I thought that Brian Ferentz, rewatching the game, I thought Brian Ferentz actually played a pretty aggressive game. I really do. I thought he took some shots, and much like week 1, his unit let him down. Now, week 1, I think, was more of a just kind of pack it in and we're okay, just getting out of here clean and getting guys some reps and that sort of thing. But much like week 1, if Cade McNamara doesn't overshoot Seth Anderson on the go route, that's a touchdown. That's 7 points right there. That's 27 points on the board. And there were a few other plays like that as well. But overall, there were quite a few 3rd and 2s, 3rd and shorts, where Iowa State, it did bet, and if they had $1,000, they would put all 1,000 on Iowa running the football, as their defense showed. And Iowa, got huge gains on it. Now, the positive with Iowa is this. Luke Lachey and Eric All are absolutely who we expected before the season started. Iowa definitely has top 3, if not number 1 tight end unit in the Big Ten. Luke Lachey is well on his way to having an NFL tight end draft pick type season. He's had an excellent first 2 games. I would like to see him get more touchdowns, but much like Sam Laporta, you can only work with what you have. And, what can I say? But as far as the catches and impact on offense, Luke Lachey has absolutely been the MVP of the Iowa offense this year so far. Eric All has helped move the chains as well. Josiah Patterson was an absolute bright spot. As you guys know, I've been clamoring for him to get more reps, because that is what Iowa needs. See, if you're going to go with a running back by committee approach, you have to have varying styles. And LaShawn Williams and Caleb Johnson are similar runners. They're more ground and pound type guys. Josiah Patterson is slippery. He's quick, and he has excellent vision. So that's a bright spot. That is a definite bright spot for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But, where are the wide receivers? I would like Iowa, especially considering this is what I would really like to see moving forward, is I would like to see Iowa utilize, because Iowa is missing a legitimate outside threat. Maybe Seth Anderson might be able to become that guy in certain ways, especially stretching the field. But as far as like a true Brandon Smith, Tavon Smith, type receiver. Iowa currently does not have a guy ready to step into that role yet. They have guys that they're developing, but they don't have guys that are ready yet. Okay. What they do have, though, and we've seen this in previous years, is they have a lot of shifty, quick wide receivers. So I would like to see them, and they have 2 tight ends that are athletic, big-bodied, and can stretch the field vertically, and they can do whatever. I mean, they can do it intermediate, stretch it, whatever. Doesn't matter. But just for the sake of what I'm talking about right now, they can stretch the field. So I would really like to see Iowa utilize the quickness of their wide receivers and implement more screens, more slants, a more quick passing offense. Get Cade McNamara out on play action, which we did see against Iowa State. And use Luke Lachey and Eric All as your big-bodied go up and get on the perimeter guys for now. That is what I would like to see. But as I said in my post game, Iowa special teams, elite. Drew Stevens hasn't missed a field goal yet. Tory Taylor, best punter in the country. There you have it. The last couple games, Northwestern beat UTEP, beat them pretty soundly. Maryland beat Charlotte. Minnesota beat Eastern Mij, and Rutgers beat Temple. So we'll go ahead and do the power rankings. I do want to show some team stats here. NCAA football team stats. By the way, guys, subscribe if you're not subscribed already. So look at this, guys. Let's just look at passing yards. This is individual. So Maryland's got 2 Tagovailoa, he's up there. Kyle McCord is top 50. Illinois, Luke Altmaier, 74th. Gavin Wimsatt, Rutgers, 87th. There's probably a few guys. Rocco Becht, Iowa State, 99th. And there's Iowa's quarterback, tied for 100th. One spot above Athan Kaliakmanis of Minnesota. Keep in mind, guys, a lot of these guys are not even full-time starting quarterbacks like Cade McNamara is. They're actually backups. So, you know, what more can I say, guys? I mean, let's look at rushing D here. Nebraska actually has really good rushing D. They are 8th. Iowa is 43rd. Wisconsin tied with them, 43rd. I did not see Rutgers is 3rd. Wow, they are up there. Purdue 11th, not bad. Iowa State 62nd, Indiana 56th, Northwestern 65th, Minnesota 78th. We'll look at scoring defense, and then I want to look at total offense. Michigan tied for 2nd, scoring defense. Rutgers tied for 8th. Minnesota tied for 10th. Michigan State 16th. Penn State 17th. Iowa 26th. Iowa State 31st. Northwestern 37th. Maryland, I missed them 23rd. They're actually ahead of the Hawks. Minnesota 11th. Iowa is giving up. By the way, if you're a fan of any other team besides Iowa, I am an Iowa fan, as you guys can see behind me. So Iowa is giving up 13.5 points a game. All right, last thing we'll look at is total offense here. And total defense. Screw it. Maryland 19th. Michigan 42nd. Michigan State 49th. Wisconsin tied with them 49th. This is total offense, by the way, guys. Ohio State actually a little low, 52nd. Purdue 67th. Illinois 88th. I got to make a Facebook post about this. Iowa State 124th. Iowa 125th. I have to make a Facebook post about this, guys. Man. Man, that is crazy. All right, last thing, we'll look at total defense here. Minnesota 9th or 8th, excuse me, tied for 8th. Penn State 10th. Michigan 13th. Ohio State is actually 4th. Michigan State 5th. Indiana is 15th. Rutgers 20th. Iowa State 22nd. Other Big Ten fans just know that because there's a lot of Iowa fans, so I always say what Iowa State is. Maryland 40th, Northwestern 42nd, Iowa 46th. Iowa's giving up 309.5 yards per game. All right, guys. Last but not least, I will give you guys my power rankings. We'll start with the Big Ten East. I'm gonna go with man, it's hard to remember who I went with last week. I think I'm just going to make a rule that I'll do the best I can. I'm going to have to write it down. Let me see if I can write it down. Actually, I'll write it down after this, but I think I had Penn State #1 from last week because they had a good win against West Virginia. So I will keep them after their shellacking of Delaware. #1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. I mean, like I said last week, it's like 1A, 1B, 1C. Okay. I will go with Rutgers 4th. Maryland 5th, Michigan State 6th, and Indiana 7th. But it really, guys, it's like ultimately the power rankings is an impossible thing to do because what you have is 1A, 1B, 1C, and then you have everybody else. You have the first group and then you have the second group, and it's you could really have any of them anywhere within those two groups and not get yelled at too much. Um, So, but Indiana is the only team that has a loss, so I'll have them as 7th. In the Big Ten West, Iowa number 1. I will go with Minnesota number 2. I will go with, and this is going to surprise some people, I am going to go with Purdue number 3. And as I told you guys, I base this off of 2 primary things. Who have you beaten? Your record. Who've you beaten? The quality of your wins, the quality of your losses, if you have them, and the talent level that I assess on your team. Iowa, I think, has the best Big Ten West victory to date against Iowa State. And I think that that is followed closely behind with Purdue's victory over Virginia Tech. So I'm actually going to go with Purdue at number 3. I'll go with Wisconsin at number 4. We'll go with Illinois at 5 because they played a decent opponent in Kansas. We'll see if it's a decent loss, if there is such a thing. We'll go with Illinois 6th and Nebraska 7th. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching the Big Ten Whip Around Show week 2. The first episode was a smashing success. I think all of you guys be on the lookout for my game preview, Iowa versus Western Michigan. It'll be an excellent opportunity for Iowa to work out some kinks and get some things offensively worked out, hopefully get healthy and work on some things heading into Penn State week. That's going to be a huge game for the Iowa Hawkeyes. A lot of movement this week with a few key games in the Big Ten. And I'm sure we'll have even more of it after next week. All right, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill. If you guys want to donate, you guys absolutely can. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. And facts are feelings because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. And of course, go Hawks. Bye-bye.